All right, you guys, 3:30. We are on with our Thriving Couples show. I'm super excited to bring you guys three more presenters today. It looks like there's a hang up in one of my deals. Let me see if I can see what's going on so that everybody could have a broadcast to my actual page. This may be an issue on Facebook's end, but it's possible the stream was ended or deleted on Facebook. Let me just make sure that everything is okay with it. If not, we're in two other places and you guys will be able to find that as well. All right, we'll go with what we have. So we know we're up in a couple places. My group, you have me. If you guys need to leave comments, you can do that, and we'll also get to what we need to. All right, so we are going to start out. And before I get started, appreciate everybody for coming in. I think that there's so much cool information that is going on that I'm like, man, I don't want anybody to miss this. I want everybody to be able to have everything that we're giving out. I also kind of want to start out with a thought, and the thought is this, and this is kind of a cool thought. Our freedom and everything that we have or that we're experiencing, that means that we feel free and we like the place that we're in, all comes from the discipline that we have. And so a lot of times we don't want to do certain things that are hard in the moment, but it's the hard in the moment that gets us to be free. And if we can realize that our freedoms, and if you think about just like driving down the street, right? I drive down the street, and the reason that I get to do the driving down the street is because there's rules in place that we're all following. And if I'm willing to go by those first, I get to keep my freedom, right? But it's whenever I want to pass on the rule that I start limiting myself and start presenting myself from being able to have the free that I actually want to experience. So that's been a thought that's on my mind, and I wanted to share that with you guys because it's the same way that we are with our kids. I'm super strict with my kids about bedtimes, especially when school time is happening. And why is that? Well, I want them to be free during the next day so they're not trapped by all the sleepiness and the grumpiness that they might be. And in this case, it gives them a really cool chance to be in those scenarios and have a good day. And so think about that for yourself. How do you set up a scenario of freedom by going inside out and really focusing on being disciplined initially? All right. So our first guest actually could not make it in a live version. So what she did is she went ahead and gave us her a video. And so she recorded it for us early today. Said, "Hey, I gotta go, Thomas, but I don't want to miss it." So I'm gonna play that video for you guys, and then we are going to watch it together. Okay, so I'm gonna switch over to that screen. Let me get that up here. Bear with me as I. Okay, I think it's all ready. So I'm gonna get this so that you guys can share it, or so that I can share it with you. Share my screen. Virtual Summit. All right, so let's watch Sherry Timko as she explains her topic.
Welcome to the virtual summit series for thriving couples. It is such a privilege for me to be here and talk with you today. I'm Sherry Timko. I'm going to talk about the one thing that will strengthen your relationship, even if you do everything else wrong. This comes out of my work as a couples relationship coach and a couples psychotherapist, and it's really powerful. It's such a privilege to share this with you. So I hope you'll just take the next few minutes and listen along. Now, what is that one thing? Seems like there's a lot of options that it could be, but what is that one thing that if you do it and you do it regularly, it will shift everything in your relationship? Well, let me tell you. You now don't cringe, don't turn away. It's appreciation. Now, why is this so powerful? Appreciation, telling your partner that you appreciate something that they've done, saying thank you. Appreciation makes them feel seen and heard and like you are there with them. And being seen and heard is such a powerful thing. It helps build the relationship quickly, and it's an easy thing to do because it's just about paying attention and noticing. Um, so if you guys are feeling negative towards each other, if you start to add appreciation, it'll start to shift that. And it does it really fast, especially if you do it consistently. In fact, appreciation balances out the hard stuff. Our brains are kind of wired to look for the hard stuff, the stuff that's not resolved, the stuff that doesn't have closure. So it kind of screens out a lot of the good stuff that's going on. The power of appreciation is not that it sugarcoats the stuff that's not going well. It's not that it pushes aside or sweeps under the rug the parts of the relationship that need some work. Instead, it allows the bad stuff, the hard stuff to sit next to the good stuff. So it's like being more honest in your relationship. When you use appreciation, it's like you can see the whole picture, not just the parts that aren't going well. It's also free. Isn't that great to find a solution in your relationship that really is fast and doesn't cost a lot? So if you're going to do one thing in your relationship, it would be add appreciation. Now, what is a good appreciation? I talk to people all the time. They're like, "Oh, I say thank you. I say thank you all the time." I'm like, "That's great. How are you saying thank you?" Because being really good at appreciation is not saying thank you for dinner every night without fail. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you stop doing that if that's what you're doing, but I would say that you can do a much better job of showing appreciation. So let me give you some of the details about this. So good appreciation focuses on the details about things. It's not general. It's not how, thank you for dinner. It's thank you for this dinner, or thank you for how this dinner got here. And I'm going to go through a bunch of examples for you in just a minute so you can hear the difference between them. A good appreciation doesn't have qualifiers to it. A good appreciation doesn't say, "Well, I really liked it that one time when you did this, but what I'm really saying is I wish you did that all the time." It's instead saying, "I appreciate this time when this happened." The other times, they're not really relevant. They're not really part of what you're trying to allude to. So good appreciations are also timely. It is so amazing to do something and have your partner notice right away. Now, that being said, it's almost never too late to go back and say, you know, that really made a difference for me. I didn't mention it at the time, and I kind of wish I did, but maybe I didn't even realize how much I appreciated it until later. So I really appreciate that this happened, even if it was way in the past. Appreciation is most powerful when you use it around an area of conflict. This is like a level up appreciation skill. Saying thank you for dinner, that's like, I don't know, common courtesy or polite. Saying thank you for this dinner. Thank you for trying a new recipe. Thank you for the time that you spent in the kitchen. That's a level up. But the really powerful appreciation is when you can show appreciation around an area of conflict. And that is, we've argued over who's going to make dinner. I know that you didn't want to make dinner today. And I am going to appreciate the fact that you did that anyways. Or I'm going to appreciate that when you did that, you did a really good job at it. All right, so that is why to use appreciation, but I think it's really helpful when you can hear the examples, because that's where you can really hear the difference between these different levels of using appreciation. So I've got some examples for you. I've used one of them and I'll just use it more clearly here. Thank you for making dinner. I think that's something that people get into the habit of saying, which is why I'm using it for this example, because I really want you to hear how you can use that in a much more powerful way. So thank you for using dinner. Thank you for making dinner becomes thank you for trying new recipes. It keeps our dinners more interesting. Thank you for getting groceries. I know that making dinner is more than just preparing the food, it's also the planning and the gathering of all the stuff. Thank you for dinner. I love the taste of this. And thank you for making dinner. I really appreciate your time in the kitchen. Now, if you can break down a general appreciation into many appreciations, then you're also not going to feel like you're just blindly saying the same thing. You've just fallen into a rut and you always say the same thing because you're going to be looking for new aspects of it to say thank you for. All right, so another example. Thank you for listening to me. That sounds like a pretty good appreciation, doesn't it? What if you bump that up and you say, thank you for caring about my perspective. Or thank you for helping me cope with this situation. Thank you for checking in with me about this issue. Thank you for giving me your full attention. Each of those is a different aspect of having a conversation with you and listening to you. These are also things that you can use if you've had conflict. You can still show appreciation to your partner for how they listen to you. You can show appreciation for the ways that they make you feel seen and heard. All right, so another example is thank you for going with me. A lot of times couples end up asking their partner to go and do something with them that they don't really want to do. And showing some appreciation around that can be really powerful. So some level ups are thank you for supporting me. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for holding my hand when you were near me. Thank you for warning me that this might be hard for you. Now, if you're the person who is attending, you can show appreciation. Even if you didn't want to be there, you can show appreciation in this level up sort of way. Like, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for including me in things that matter to you. Thank you for letting me be there for you when it was hard, when you were doing something hard. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to support you. There's lots of ways, whether you're on the side of asking someone to come with you, or you're on the side of going, but maybe not wanting to be there. And I have one more set of examples. And this might be when you guys are truly in conflict. There's still the option, the opportunity to show appreciation in those situations as well. So you might start with just that general, thank you for hearing me out. But if you want to level that up, the ways that you level that up might sound like, thank you for sharing your concerns and listening to mine. Thank you for challenging me to think differently about an issue. Thank you for helping me to think more comprehensively about this topic. Thank you for being willing to wrestle with me about hard things. Thank you for sticking with the conversation, even when I wasn't able to say exactly what I meant. So these are really small things. They might even sound like they're not worth doing. It's really important that when you do them, you don't fall into a rut with them, but showing appreciation is something that you can do in any circumstance. I personally have never met a couple who didn't have something that they could find that they could appreciate in the other person. And again, this is not an excuse, and this does not dismiss them from having to work on the other things. So I'm so glad that you joined me. Again, I'm Sherry Timko. I am always interested in finding the smallest, shortest little change that you can make, that when you're in a long-term relationship, those changes add up to big changes in the trajectory of your relationship over time. So if that appeals to you, you also can find me at sherrytimko.com. And I do have some free resources there and the links to my social media where you can have a lot more contact with me. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Isn't that cool? And so first of all, Sherry, when you're watching this back, I appreciate you getting that ready for us and presenting that. It is the simple things. And I think that a lot of times we overlook something as simple, but if it's easy, I want you to do it, right? If it's easy, I challenge you to actually do it. If somebody hearing the conversation might think, well, yeah, of course, it's easy to say a couple of words, but I want you to challenge yourself, do that, add that into what you're doing on a daily basis in your relationship. Thank you, Sherry, so much. All right, so our next guest is going to be speaking with us. Deborah, thank you for coming in. Let me invite you in actually as we're talking here.
Hey.
Deborah, thank you for coming in. I'll let you introduce yourself and you have the microphone for the next 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for this opportunity to share with your audience and and to follow Sherry. It's just, I could tell it's just chock full of great things. So I'm Deborah Scamba. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey, beautiful New Jersey. And I am a therapist coach, and I'm all about healthy relationships and strong marriages. And so today, this afternoon, or this evening, I want to share with you keys that will help you to embrace obstacles in your relationship, use them to build the bridge to cross over together so that you have a thriving love. So my own journey of marital bliss was without its struggles. I've grappled with the challenges of time and energy after demanding days, often failing to find the right words to express my thoughts and emotions, and the grand vision of being my husband's closest ally, his biggest cheerleader, felt distant and unattainable. So the dream of having a Christ-centered household seemed to be overshadowed by the turmoil of the present. And I think many of us can relate to that today. So maybe some of you battle with a sense of inadequacy, maybe growing resentment. Maybe you feel like you carry the weight of perceived failures, of not being able to show up as your best self in your relationship, in your marriage. Or maybe you've even started to pull away from the possibility of having your dream come true, of having a relationship or a marriage that you've always dreamed of having. But before we start talking about these challenges, because today I'm talking about embracing obstacles and building bridges, right? So before we start talking about this, I thought I would do just a few little housekeeping things. So what I'm talking about here is leaving is not an option, right? But rather transforming your outlook is the key. Nurturing a Christ-centered healthy marriage helps to create a sanctuary that can withstand life's troubles. And the third thing is that you are solely responsible for your happiness. So it's going to be like holding a mirror up to your face to see what you are from within. So you can weather all storms that are testing the very foundation of your relationship, such as financial struggles, health setbacks, career obligations, and even moments of doubt as obstacles. And yet your love doesn't have to waver. So in every relationship, obstacles are inevitable. But what if I told you that these obstacles, these very obstacles that were starting to tear the fabric of your relationship, starting to put up roadblocks, can actually be used as stepping stones that can lead to a bridge of shared growth and flourishing love? So let's explore. Let's dive into the 3 points that I have, a strategy, 3 strategies to navigate these challenges and to build bridges to thriving relationships. This is possible. Your dream, your hope is still possible. If there's a little flame, you could fan that flame into having that relationship that you've always dreamed of having. But we need to learn how to reframe these obstacles. So the first one is embracing it as an opportunity. So when you're faced with obstacles in your relationship, it's natural to feel overwhelmed or discouraged, like I did. I talked about how I grappled with these things, right? It just would be too long of a day. However, the first step towards conquering these challenges is to embrace them as opportunities for growth. We all have areas of growth, right? Every obstacle presents a chance to learn more about who you are, who your partner is, and to strengthen your bond and to develop resilience as a couple. You don't have to be that marriage or that relationship that drifts apart. So here's a couple of tips to help you in this. Reframe your setbacks, because their setbacks are setups, right, as learning experiences. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, instead of looking at the glass half empty, as roadblocks, view them as opportunities to gain insights into your relationship dynamics and communication styles. Learn how to communicate openly by sharing your feelings and concerns with each other. Foster a safe place and an environment of trust and vulnerability, and that will encourage mutual support during difficult times. Focus on solutions. Rather than dwelling on the problem, shift your energy towards finding solutions together, promoting a proactive approach to overcoming obstacles. I know that when I did this in my own marriage, how that changed the dynamics completely. And it became more and more opportunity to grow closer and closer together. And this is for you as well, to trust the process, to do the hard things first, and learn how to communicate. So the second key point is transforming obstacles into stepping stones. So conquering obstacles requires intentional effort to transform them into stepping stones on the path to a stronger relationship. So just imagine that this is what you're looking forward to. So as a coach, as a therapist coach, I help you with understanding your background, but we don't stay there in your past. We are always looking forward, building bridges. It involves acknowledging and addressing underlying issues and finding shared meaning in it, overcoming adversity. So here you go. Here you're stepping on these things, putting these things under your feet and saying, no, these are not going to keep me from having the relationship that I've dreamed of, that I want. So here's some tips on transforming obstacles. Practice active listening. So what does that look like? That looks like seeking to understand more than being understood, seeking your partner's perspective and feelings without judgment. They are just your partner's feelings. They're just as valid as yours are. Active listening fosters empathy. Try to walk in their shoes for a moment and create a space for collaborative problem solving. Look for win-win situations. If only one person wins and the other one loses, you both lose. Foster a growth mindset. Embrace the idea that challenges are chances to learn and improve. Encourage each other to view these setbacks as part of the journey forward towards a more fulfilling relationship. And if you need it, seek professional advice, help. There is no shame in seeking help. It is your path to having a better life by having someone else come along, hear what you're saying, listening, and giving you sound, godly advice. A neutral third party usually has valuable insights and tools that work. And the third point that I want to share with you is that building a bridge to thriving love is transforming obstacles into stepping stones. Then you take the stepping stones and you put them together to build a bridge where now you're learning about each other. You're learning how, what the feelings are, what's behind the problem, the obstacle, and using it to connect your heart into a deeper, more meaningful way. So connection, I've heard a definition of connection is that when you connect with somebody, you give yourself a chance to be loved on. So as you think you're doing everything for your partner, for your spouse, you are actually giving yourself a chance to be a part of it and be loved on, a part of the relationship, not just a standing by. And so the bridge becomes a foundation for a flourishing love that withstands the test of time. We all go through them. I'm married 40 years now. I have 2 grown children, 5 grandsons. I call them my joys. I know a thing or two. We all know a thing or two. But here's what we do with it. We learn and we use it to embrace, transform, and have the relationship. So here's what you need to do. This is the last of my tips, is to celebrate the progress that you are making. Don't let any milestones go uncelebrated. Acknowledge and celebrate them as achievements as you navigate challenges together. Take time to appreciate the growth that you both experience as a couple. Be in that moment. Embrace it. Cultivate gratitude and appreciation, as Sherry, the speaker before me, said. Okay, and take time to appreciate the growth. But here's also express gratitude. Nobody can read your mind. But if you use your words, you speak into your relationship and you say, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. And then any effort. My husband, I make his tea every morning. He makes sure I know how much he appreciates it. This is how you keep moving forward. Foster a positive atmosphere. You want positive results? Have a positive atmosphere. And then this will reinforce the bond. It'll keep you guys stronger so that nothing will come between the two of you. Continue evolving together. You may not evolve at the same pace, but listen, relationships are dynamic, they're alive, and growth is an ongoing process. So embrace change and continue to explore new opportunities for mutual growth and enrichment. So I just want to end and in navigating obstacles in a relationship, I want to end with this. It's not about avoiding them. They don't go away. They probably get worse if you avoid them, but embracing them, saying, okay, here's the moment. Here's the moment. We're not going to let this go any further until we share about where we are in this moment. By transforming these challenges as stepping stones, you create a bridge of shared growth that leads to a flourishing and thriving love. Yes, and amen to that. Remember, it's not about finding the perfect relationship. Nobody's perfect. But you are 2 imperfect people that are coming together. But rather building a strong and resilient one together. Being together in your imperfect love, right? But it is a time to embark on a journey, this journey with open hearts, knowing that each obstacle you conquer together will bring you closer to a love that lasts a lifetime. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Thomas. I'm just so happy to be here. I noticed that you put up the link for the free checklist to have a better marriage, 10 ways to have a better marriage in 7 days.
Right.
And so thank you so much.
Yeah. And Deborah, do you have a website that you can let them know about too? What is your website?
So my website is www.h the number 2H, heart to heart coaching.com.
Right. Okay. So you guys,
That's
it's
perfect.
in
Yes,
front of that checklist. It's all of that website there
it
that
is.
we just put up, and so you can access her there. Okay. Deborah, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it, and I look forward to you and I having more conversation as well. Thank you.
I look forward to that very much, Thomas.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All
Talk to you.
right.
All right, you guys. So we are winding down here. While we're waiting for our next guest to come in, there's a couple of things that, a couple other pieces that I wanted to talk to you guys about. One of the pieces that I think happens as people, but even as couples, is we don't really know what the next spot is. And what I mean by that is, I mean, you've never been married this long, right? When you get to year 3, you've never been married for 3 years. When you get to year 30, you've never been married for 31 years. How do we do that? Well, a useful thing to keep helping us get the years and learn how to do that is meet people who have already kind of been through that path. But then it's also being willing to get more information or bring other people in who are doing those scenarios. So a lot of times we don't seek out help or invite people in our lives to be able to help us, but it is a big deal, and it is an important thing for us to be able to allow ourselves to have that kind of help. We don't know where we're going, and it's useful for us to be able to allow ourselves to get that help and partner up with other people. And so that's actually a success concept, is that the more that you can partner up with other people who are doing the same thing that you're trying to do or focused on building to a different place, then it changes everything. And so if you don't already have in your life things like couples retreats and couples get-togethers, and if those things aren't already in your life where you're meeting up with people with intentionality and focusing on, hey, how can we get better at these kinds of things? And I would say they're more like, it's not just maybe a meetup or a hangout. We'll all probably do that at some rate, and that's cool. But the more we're doing things like masterminds as couples and retreats and being really intentional about our growth, then we get to a different kind of spot. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give my presentation, and then as our other guest is able to connect, then we'll kind of go from there. Let me get my presentation for you guys downloaded here and then uploaded. Man, so we keep getting goodness coming into our presentations, and I'm so grateful and excited for that. Yeah, it feels really cool to be able to have all the information and the different pieces that will help you. And I hope you guys are also benefiting from what's been coming in. So, all right. So today I'm actually going to talk to you guys about communication. So let's add it in. So we've been building up to this. The first day we talked about the individual and what it takes. And really, if you start there, then all these next days or the following days start getting a little bit easier. But we started with the idea of, who you are as an individual and how to do that a little bit better. Go back and watch if you have to. And then the second day that we met, which was last week, we talked more about the relationship and what that looked like as far as the relationship goes. How do I be in the relationship? And it just so happened that we needed the first day still, right? So here we are again, where we're talking about developing communication. And now we need, we still need the first day, right? So if you haven't already, please go back and watch that information as much as possible. Try to stack it on to these. So here we are at Thriving Couples Communication. And I want to give you some things that are not like status quo, things that you can't just go look up and say, What's the best way to communicate I statements, right? We're not doing that kind of thing. I want to give you some things that mean, oh, this is a game changer for us. If we follow it, we know it will work, right? So I statements are more of like a skill or strategy or way of doing it. Who knows if it works? If we're able to follow this depth here, you're going to change everything that you're doing in communication. So the first piece that I would say when we talk about being able to have conversation and being able to speak to our partners, if we're going to thrive and raise the level of interaction as far as communication goes, we need to be able to speak from our essence. And we've already had this discussion about where our essence is, but there's 3 characteristics that you need to know about your essence that will send you through the amazing roof if you're able to encompass these. And so the first concept that you need to have is, I need to make sure that my intentions are good, right? It's not up to anybody else to judge. This is just between you and you. Before we get into a conversation about how to speak as a couple, you as an individual need to make sure that your intentions are good. The second thing is, you can't compare yourself to other people. We really don't want to compare each other to other people, but let's just start with not comparing ourselves to other people. We need to understand that it's okay to be just as we are, and not in a stuck way or in a not pursuing more way. We're not talking about that kind of idea. I'm saying it's okay for you to be at your core, whoever you are, doing your thing, right? Those are okay things. You don't have to look at the world and say, what do they have? And I need that. Because if you were to speak from your essence, whatever's coming from the inside, you know if it's right or wrong. And so challenge yourself to allow yourself to be unique and be as you are as much as possible. And the third thing that says that, okay, I'm coming from my essence is, am I honest? Am I sincere? Do I know what's really on the inside for me? Am I speaking from that scenario? The more that you can use these 3 situations here, good, unique, honest, then we really could shut down the conversation at that point in time, because you're going to do a good job, right? So I'm going to give you some skills and some ways to do it, and we're going to give you some principles, but this right here is a starting point. Don't skip over this. This is almost like going back to day one. We can't skip over it, okay? So what are some of your barriers to communication? Let's go over these. The first thing is your understanding about what communication is. And throughout your life, and we discussed this in the first day too, throughout your life, there are different influences that you have that make communication difficult, right? Whether you got yelled at a lot, and so that became a thing that's hard for you, or whether certain people didn't talk to you in certain situations, and so now that scenario is hard. Different kinds of things created an understanding about what communication was. We're going to redefine that today so that you have the definition that will be will bring the highest benefit to you for your relationship. What words have caused you to actually think differently about what it is that you're doing as far as communication? I'll give you an example. So, and the way I wrote that, that's more of a reminder for me than it is for you guys. Sorry about that. But what words have caused you? So the idea that there's a saying that I remember, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right? So we've heard that over and over and over again. And so in some way or in some sense, that makes us devalue the amazingness and the possibilities that communication can do in our relationship, because we start to think of words like that. And so what we needed to know at that time, a good replacement for that concept, is that, man, it is possible that words are meaningful and they're hurtful. But the truth is, if I know who I am, then I have less to do with the words that are being spoken to me, right? But we do know, and we're going to admit, that words are actually influential and useful and powerful, right? So it's sometimes there are different sayings like that where we devalue what words actually mean and the influence they have. You're not paying attention to limitless and royalty. You are. And so this is a huge deal, because sometimes we're using words and saying things and being things that really don't demonstrate who we really are. Instead, they're more about this last thing that I said, which is your words come from the outside instead of the inside. They're more about your emotions and your feelings and less about a demonstration of this is who I am. This last one, good, unique, honest. It's less about those things and it's more about, man, I'm hurting. There's a hardship in front of me. And so we start demonstrating the words of those situations. Right. And so those things keep us from being able to communicate. The more we're consumed by outside and we communicate from that space, the harder it gets for us. Okay. So what do we do different? Well, here's the definition that's a game changer to me. And if you fully understand it, it'll be a game changer for you. We have always known that language is a spiritual scenario. Now, we may not interact on it that way, but we have always known that. How do we know that? Well, look at the things around us, right? When we think about creation and manifestation, like what's used to do those things, it's language, right? And when we think about connection and relationship, what's used to actually make those scenarios happen? Well, it's not talking to each other, right? What about healing and transformation? How do those things happen? It's language. The responsibility and the ethics that are in different places. Like, how do we get to those things, right? All these things, energy and vibration, the sacred texts that people believe in, all the books, that's all language. And it constantly translates into something else. If we think about it this way and we understand the dynamics of language, then we start realizing that, whoa, it's a big deal. And we have it at our exposure. And that's even of higher value to me, right? So understand this, your words are not neutral or inconsequential, but are instead potent tools that can shape our reality and our relationships. Isn't that amazing? Right? It's one thing just to think about like, oh yeah, I said this, but what if you know that whenever you're speaking, it means and moves so much? What if you realize that about yourself? Then you wouldn't just be, as my grandpa used to say, talking out the side of your neck, right? So instead, you actually get to be able to know that what I'm about to say is going to move people. What I'm about to say is a demonstration of who I am. And because of who I am, I know that I have the opportunity to be able to shine over a lot of different scenarios. But we don't realize or we don't interact on the idea that language is spiritual. And so we need to know it encourages us to use the tool with awareness, intention, and love if we understand that it's spiritual. All right, so there's a couple of things that I want us to do in our relationships. Now we understand that language is spiritual. If we can get beyond some of those barriers that we have, we're communicating from our essence. Where do we go before we communicate? And so here's a useful thing in communication. You must do self-examination before critique. You can't stare so much at somebody else and know all their wrongdoing and not be done with your list. And if you're done with your list, can you please come talk to me, because I want to know how you did that, right? At the end of the day, it's hard for us to be done with our list. So as long as you have your list, you can't go and critique somebody else. Somebody else, if you're actually doing enough self-examination, somebody's going to come to you and ask for your help, right? And at that point in time, there's an opportunity. But we're not waiting for that situation. So what does it take? It takes a lot of self-awareness. Be more aware of who you are. And there's a reason I think that we go to other people. A lot of times we go to other people and see all their wrongness because ours is too much. A lot of times we go to other people and see their wrongness because ours is just too much, right? We don't know how to solve ours, but if we can get mad at somebody else for what they're doing, then it's a little bit easier for us. Right? So challenge yourself to be more self-aware of what's going on. And then the second thing is be humble, have humility, right? Instead of us looking at what our partner did wrong, raise up the idea that says, look, I have a lot of understanding that we're all in different spaces. I have a lot of understanding that I have things to work on, you have things to work on, and that we're going to be okay. I don't need to examine you. I need to do a self-examination about what's going on. right? So this allows, that humility allows us to grow in a different kind of way. And the third thing is empathy and compassion. And so understand the impact of your words and actions on your partner and approach them with love and care. The more that you can, and this is part of the self-examination piece, if you can examine yourself and say, look, I know that I need to be more empathetic and I need to be more, I need to use more compassion and in order to actually interact in our relationship, then even that gives you a scenario that provides excellent relationship grounds and relationship growth grounds for thriving couples. Okay. And so do a self-examination before you go to critique. And this changes everything in our communication. I promise you. So what happens if we're like, man, Thomas, I did it all, right? It's all, we're here and we still have a conflict. I think that still happens. In matter of fact, I think if you look forward to it, I didn't put this in our slide, but one thing that you can look forward to after the conflicts is that makeup part, right? And so if you're willing to say, look, if we have conflicts, and you guys could put this in your emergency plans, if we have conflicts, we're definitely making up afterwards. Then you'll be able to help yourself a whole lot, right? So the challenge is, yes, we're going to get into conflicts. What do we need to do? Well, I'll tell you this much. You have to get to a spot where your emotions are not higher than the thoughts that you're thinking, right? So if your emotions are way up here and your thoughts are way down here, you're going to have a hard time. You got to get your emotions and thoughts on balance. You can't even have your thoughts up here and your emotions down here. It can't even happen like that. They need to be on balance. And the more they're on balance or closer to a balance, then you can start interacting with each other. Then you can go to try to resolve the conflicts, because a lot of times we're not making headway on our conflict resolution because we're not making emotional sense. You might be making sense to me, but it doesn't feel good to me. So it's hard for me to go with you. Change that over by being able to get in a space where it says, I need to get some calm down space. All right. The second thing is to address the issue promptly and privately. Can you address the issue as soon as possible? I don't want to put the issue promptly, and you don't need to have your partner do that. Everybody knows what their prompt is, right? So you don't have to say, oh, Thomas said we need to hurry up and get to this interaction and solve this conflict. No. Like, promptly means as soon as we can, but we don't need to add another pressure in our scenario. But we're not going to do it in front of everybody, right? It's a private interaction, not in front of your kids, not in front of family members, not in front of friends. That's not the time, right? That's definitely not the time. You're not going to create a good communication scenario in that situation. And the third step, take responsibility for how you feel without blaming or insulting. A lot of people try to use I statements here. I'm not a fan of I statements. The reason I don't like I statements is because they're sneaky blames, just with an I in front of them. Like, I don't feel very well when you do X, Y, and Z. That's a blame, right? I don't want to blame, and I don't want to insult. So I don't want to say, like, you don't know that, right? That's an insult, like saying you're too stupid to figure it out, right? So I want to take responsibility for how I feel. What does that look like? It looks something like this. Look, I notice myself getting upset every single time this situation happens. And I really want to work on that. I mean, you could be my accountability partner, but my idea here is that I want to be better at responding no matter where you're at. And so I actually don't want you to change yet. I want you to stay in the same spot, because that helps me to grow. If you're willing to keep doing that, then I'm able to grow in this scenario. And so I take full responsibility for the feelings and the experience that I'm having, and I'm trying to get better and work on it. And if you need anything from me, I'm going to try to be there for that as well. Right. So that's taking absolute responsibility for how you feel, instead of us being able to blame and insult somebody else. Okay. The fourth thing is actively listen. And so can I not only say, right? Can I actually let them know I get you and I hear what you're saying and I'm with you, right? And as a matter of fact, let me clarify that you're saying X, Y, and Z, and I'm not convinced that you're saying it, but I want to let you know that this is what I think you're saying. Is that what you're saying, right? And they can give you a, yes, you got it, right? Or no, it's more like this. Okay, I got that. I got that distinction you made actually, right? So actively listen. The fifth thing is ask for their perspective. Now, this is where the magic happens to me. I think that if we're willing to ask for perspective in our relationship, then we're less likely to be hard up on each other about what you did and did not do. What I mean by that, if I say to my partner, I say, look, I kind of want to know what you think about that scenario, or what you're seeing in this about me or about another scenario. And so I'm really wanting to know, can you give me your real about that? And if they're willing to give you your real and you've built that in your relationship, then that's the time where we actually get to talk to each other about the things that we have that are hard for each other, right? The sixth thing, seek a compromise. So you want to make sure that you're not looking to win, and instead you're looking to get somewhere together, right? A lot of times we're looking to win, so we're not focused on getting somewhere. We're just looking to get somewhere together. Or we're a lot of times we're not seeking the compromise. We're just looking to win the scenario. We want to flip it over and make sure we're saying, how do I compromise in this situation, right? How do I move closer to a compromise? Not how do they move closer to the compromise? How do I do that, right? And then the seventh one is agree to a resolution or the next steps. And so sometimes it's not actually a full-on compromise, but let's just come up with a resolution. I'm going to say that you believe that way and I believe this way, or this is your perspective of the building. You may be on that side and I'm on that side, but we'll agree that we're at the same building. We're making the same kind of battle. Here's our resolution, right? And then do a follow-up. Let me check in with you a couple of days later and say, and see, what's gone on for you in the last week since we came up with that resolution. Are you good? Does that work for you? Does it work for us? I want to be able to talk about that by following up. The ninth one is seek external support if necessary. So if you need counseling or if you need some other kind of support, sometimes, like I was mentioning earlier, it's good just to be able to have a coach or somebody who can talk us through how to resolve certain conflicts. The 10th one is use your love rep, and we'll talk about this in a second, I believe. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but that's the person that you will follow. And then the 11th thing is know when to let go. Sometimes you just have to let go. Sometimes what we have in our life in a certain moment has been so much that we're arguing with a person, or we're trying to get that person to believe and see certain things that they just can't believe and see at that moment. And that doesn't make you right or them wrong, or them right and you wrong. The truth is they're just not there, or you're not there, or whatever that scenario is. And so we have to just let go. There's nothing bigger than the love that we're going to give. And so if we keep in our mind, and that's actually a principle behind a lot of these concepts, is to be loving first, right? And so if you can keep in your mind the idea, like the most important thing is for me to keep the love, then that helps you to know when to let go a little bit more. All right, so I want to give you guys some tools that you can have that I think will be useful if you put them in your relationships. The first one is regular check-ins. If you can create a routine that will actually help you to have a conversation that allows for the expression of feelings and concerns, then you already have that in place, and you're going to reduce the amount of conflicts that you're going to have. Okay. Now, these are check-ins, and they're really, the idea is to be able to display what the hard things are. And so we don't want to turn it into like, oh, here you go again. Well, that's why we have a regular check-in, so that we get a chance to here we go again. Okay. Use the use of a peace pause. And so when conversations get heated, take a peace pause. And we talked about this in the beginning. That's one of the first steps. That's pretty much a signal that you guys are going to have for each other. And so you can use that in a break whenever discussions are actually going hard and you feel like it's not being productive. You can say, like, look, we've already agreed to the peace pauses. I'm going to take a peace pause right here. The third thing is schedule conflict resolution. And so set aside a time to actually have the conflict resolution time, right? So free your distractions, or free of your distractions, specifically for just resolving the conflict, right? So we're having a hard time. Well, we're going to make sure we meet. Let's talk after work and go to dinner or take a walk and go resolve this conflict at a certain time. Okay. The next thing is we have plans for everything. At work, you probably have an evacuation plan if you're working in a building. There's all kinds of plans in place. And so why not have communication emergency plans? And so how will we resolve problems when it gets difficult? If you know ahead of time what the plan is for you two as a couple, then you start being able to give yourself a chance to react based on what you already have in place for that plan. So create some emergency plans for you when it comes to communication. Here's a love rep conversation. I want you to find someone who can help you fix tiebreakers or help be the tiebreaker. When you come to a thing that you say, look, we can't really resolve this, and you don't agree and I don't agree, but we need to move on something. Find a person who you trust, who has experience in the knowledge, and somebody who both of you will say, like, whatever you say to do, we'll do that. Go to that person whenever things get really challenging and you've already tried to do all the steps and you can't do anymore, and ask the love rep, hey, what's your recommendation for us to move forward? And whatever that person tells you to do, you need to commit already that this is what we're going to do. Okay. And then the last thing is counseling or mentorship. I want you to be proactive. I think it's one thing to go into communication and the hard thing as far as conflict goes and try to respond afterwards. But if you were able to be proactive with it, then you get to have a lot more opportunity to resolve some of the hard things. There's things like marriage retreats. Obviously, we talked about the couples counseling earlier. Make sure that you guys have mentor couples. We talked about the love rep scenario. All those things combined will keep you from having to struggle so much, right? So that reduces the conflict and makes communication a lot easier. All right, T, let me check if our next guest, well, our next guest didn't make it in. That's okay. You guys still got tons of juice today with 3 speakers. It's good to see you guys. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.